Transformers Chronicles. For Mind Flayer arc. Episode 1. ROBOGIRL. After Dio is rescued from the void, the gang hangs out in the arcade, but soon finds out that someone has beaten their high score under the name of ROBOGIRL. Then, Dio has a vision where he is stuck in the void. Then, the gang finds out that the new student, Rika Turner, is ROBOGIRL. Meanwhile, Rhodey discovers something happening in the forest. But as he heads home, someone's been living here, and it's someone we know, Alice of the Midnight Sun. Episode 2. Trick or Treat. As Rika heads home, her brother Brody Turner suspects something. Then, as Halloween approaches, everyone gets ready to trick or treat, even the Autobots, who had never heard of Halloween before. Episode 3. The Return of Alice. So, what happened after Alice and the Demogorgon disappeared? And how did Alice escape from the upside-down world? Meanwhile, Rhodes was wandering in the woods when he sees a girl that turns out to be Alice of the Midnight Sun. Rhodes shows her to his house and gives her a room. Then, Finn and Rika confront each other and Alice gets jealous. Barney plays with his new pet, and Starscream is calling some allies. Episode 4. Seekers Unite. Thundercracker and Skywarp were seen looking for Energon when they get a call from a King Seeker. Thrust and Dirge were seen near Nuon City when they also get a call from King Seeker. Slipstream was on vacation in some parts of the galaxy when she gets a call from King Seeker. Meanwhile, Ramjet has still not picked up his calls until a big Seeker named Dreadwing forces him to come here. The Seekers are all gathered here, but King Seeker reveals that he is really Starscream, leader of the Decepticons. Episode 5. Daring Dio. As Starscream gathers up his armada, the Seekers, there's trust issues between Dreadwing and Ramjet. Meanwhile, a scientist named Marco Ditsky was working on a project with the head of the Autobots' greatest enemy, Megatron. Then, Kevin aka Dio was talking with his father, Roland Diopoulos, about a nightmare he had as a child about an evil clown. Roland stood up to the evil clown with a brave face on. Meanwhile, Dio faces the same shadow monster and tries to stand up to it, but it enters his body instead. Episode 6. No Limits Needed. Rust Bucket and the team head over to a facility where the Decepticons are storing Energon for their new project. Then, Kevin felt the monster's presence in his body the moment it entered him. During the battle, Drago pushed past his limits once again and defeats Breakdown and Knockout. Meanwhile, Alice finds some clues that lead to her mother being alive, and she was revealed to be Michaela. Episode 7. Mother Dearest. RC was busy keeping tabs on what the Decepticons are planning, but Prowl senses there's something else to that same habit of hers. Meanwhile, Alice heads to a house where she meets her caretaker and her mother, one in a catatonic state, but she doesn't remember Alice. Then, Arachnid was looking for Energon when RC came at her out of nowhere. They fight, but when Prowl was spotted, Arachnid traps RC. Alice tries talking to her mother again, but all that remained was her memories of how Alice was born and taken away, and her mother was used as an experiment by the Midnight Sun. Alice comes home and has a fight with Rhodes. Episode 8. Teletraan 1X. Prowl frees RC and they both work together to stop Arachnid, but Arachnid gets away. Then, an AI named Teletraan X has locked onto Earth's coordinates, but a Decepticon ship attacks and the ship crash lands on Earth. Teletraan X survives, but she must avoid shutting down. So, she travels from outlet to outlet, and once she heads to Rika's house, she downloads herself into Rika's maid robot, Maid 1, and becomes Teletraan 1X. Meanwhile, Rhodes finds himself trapped in the upside-down void. Noelle and Roland save him. Little did they know, something bad happens to Dio. Episode 9. The Devil in Dio. Dio wakes up only to find himself surrounded by friends and family alike. After Dio had a full-on seizure last night, none of the doctors know what to do with him, even Noelle is worried. Meanwhile, General Silas of Mech strikes a deal with Arachnid to find the location of the Visionary. Then, Teletraan 1X finds Rika and Noah and spills some info about their friend, Dio. Prowl and RC face Arachnid again, but she gets away, scanning a new form. Episode 10. The Mind Flayer. Teletraan 1X notices Rika and Noah together. Finn has some second thoughts about Dio, and Rhodes still can't find Alice. Then, Dio notices that he's connected to the shadow monster, who he calls the Mind Flayer. Meanwhile, Soundwave has access to all the world's internet services and finds that one human is spying for someone greater than Megatron. Then, Megatron speaks with Marco about where the Allspark was hidden. And look who's with him, Nova McHayden and Jean Diopoulos. Episode 11. Alice's Journey. Here in Texas, there are some runaways who live in the outskirts of town, and Alice of the Midnight Sun is soon to be one of them. Alice meets the leader of the runaways who escaped from the Midnight Sun project. Her name is Beatrice. Beatrice shows Alice her powers and her friends. The next morning, Beatrice tests Alice's powers by moving the train. They give Alice a new makeover and she joins the crew, starting robberies along the way. Then she meets Brenner, again, and she brushes him off. Alice remembers the people she met, including Finn, who he has a vision of himself running. Then, the Midnight Sun storms their hideout. What will Alice do? Episode 12. The Gate. Back at Hawkins, the group has been overrun by demo dogs. As Roland opens the gate, they have to escape from the lab. And Roland gets killed by a horde of demo dogs. Everyone is in shock over Roland's death. Finn devises a plan to beat the Mind Flayer at its own game. Dio's interrogation continues. Then, Soundwave sends his deployers to spy on Finn and the rest of the group. Meanwhile, the group gets ready for another attack, but a dead demo dog comes flying out of nowhere until a strangely familiar face arrives, Alice of the Midnight Sun. Episode 13. My Destiny. Alice has returned to Finn and his friend's side, even Rhodey. Finn's not so happy with Rhodey keeping Alice from him all this time. Then, the group splits up to beat the Mind Flayer. But first, they have to deal with Brody. Alice and Rhodey reconcile, while Dio's family does whatever it takes to save Kevin. Brody terrorizes the gang, until Rika takes a syringe and renders her brother unconscious. Then, the group travels to the void, and Alice and Rhodey fend off the creatures long enough for her to seal the gate. Later, Rhodey becomes Alice's father, and the snowball comes up, with everyone well-dressed, including Alice of the Midnight Sun and Finn the Visionary. But that's not the end of the Mind Flayer, just yet. Episode 14. Zero, are you there? 1 year later, a team of Russian scientists was studying the gate, which was sealed by Alice of the Midnight Sun, when they noticed a crack in the process. Speaking of Alice, she was having fun with Finn McHayden and listening to music, much to Rhodey's annoyance. So, he talks to Noelle with a plan to break them up. Meanwhile, Barney's getting ready for camp, so the gang heads over to surprise him, with awkward results. Then, they head to Starcourt Mall where Steven works with his new partner, Ronnie. Then, Rhodey's plan begins in motion. Episode 15. Where the Mall Rats. With Rhodey's plan set into action, he and Noelle wait for the plan to take effect. Then, Brody was out driving when he saw rats come into the basement and disappeared soon after. Meanwhile, Finn's group goes to Starcourt for some shopping, while Rika, Alice, and 1X do a little shopping of their own, and after a serious conversation, Alice dumps Finn. Then, Barney meets Steven again at his new job. And meets Ronnie. Then, at Marco's place, the head of Megatron powers up and speaks to him. Episode 16. Megatron Lives. Megatron wakes up after years of stasis to find that his body is missing. Soundwave senses a presence familiar to that of Megatron. While that was going on, he meets Marco Ditsky, a former researcher. Meanwhile, Rhodey and Noelle go to the mayor's office for an investigation, and Rhodey interrogated the man in charge. Getting to the bottom of this, Soundwave calls his deployers to spy on Noelle and Rhodey. Episode 17. The Reopened Gate. The girls have their own night and the guys have their own night, with Kevin being his daring self, which doesn't suit well for Finn and Noah. Meanwhile, at Scoops Ahoy, Barney and Steven practiced the Russian language. Jean and Nova were investigating a reopened gate, which they want to use for their newspaper, but they got fired. Then, Alice, Rika, and 1X are searching the pool for a missing lifeguard. Then, Kevin realizes that he's growing up, leaving behind his daring Dio persona, and destroys Castle Dio. Episode 18. Dinobots Arise. While Alice and Rika are sleeping together, Teletraan 1X recalls a story that Alpha Trion told when she was still Teletraan X, the story of the Dinobots. It was after Primus sealed away Unicron that the ancient Transformers first came to Earth at the dinosaur era. After an asteroid destroyed the dinosaurs, the ancients scanned their dinosaur friends and changed over time. Then a rockslide came after a cave family, but something saved them. It was the ancient Transformer. He became friends with the cave family and they taught him words and language, which he could teach to his brethren. Then he met Episode 19. The Sauna. The group's search for the missing lifeguard leads to Brody's sudden appearance. But Finn and the others won't be out of the woods yet. They discovered that the Mind Flayer has returned and is possessing Brody. Meanwhile, Noelle and Rhodey meet Marco, who meets a Russian named Alexei. Barney, Steven, and Ronnie hear what the Russians are planning, and Finn's group has a plan to weaken the Mind Flayer's control over Brody. Since the MF's weakness is heat, Finn's group does whatever it takes to subdue Brody. But something turns Brody into a monster. Alice tries to stop him, but Brody. Episode 20. Russian into danger. Noelle, Rhodey, and Marco continue their search for the kids, with Alexei on board. Meanwhile, Barney and the Scoops turn to Noah's sister, Zoe, for help, but Zoe wants to do it her way. Then, Finn's group has no idea what triggered Brody's transformation, so they turn to Nova and Jean for help. The Scoops troop starts their infiltration mission with awkward and crazy results, while Finn's group visits a nearby hospital where some of the workers who were infected still haven't attacked them yet. Episode 21. Attack of the Flayed. The miniature version of the Mind Flayer attacks Nova and Jean, but luckily, Alice and friends arrived in time to save them. Then Noelle, Rhodey, and Marco find Alexei with the car, and Barney, Zoe and the Scoops find themselves running from the Russians. Meanwhile, RC and Bulkhead face Breakdown and Arachnid, but things get magnetic. Luckily. Episode 22. One conspiracy too many. As Soundwave gathers information about the Russians via Laserbeak, Barney and Zoe try to keep a drugged-out Steven and Ronnie at bay. Then, while Noelle and Rhodey venture through an amusement park, Marco and Alexei have some of their own fun. Until Alexei gets shot and killed by an assassin. Meanwhile, as the group discuss what to do about Brody, Alice ventures into Brody's mind and sees memories about his childhood. But Alice gets. Episode 23. Revenge of the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer attacks the group, but Alice holds the monster off as they defend the cabin. It then bites Alice's leg as they try to save her and stop the Mind Flayer. Meanwhile, Steven and Ronnie's drug-induced spree ends in an awkward fashion, courtesy of Barney and Zoe. Then, Soundwave has gathered up some data on the events that happened since the Mind Flayer first appeared in Hawkins, Texas. Episode 24. Everyone together. While Soundwave was out collecting Megatron's head, he detected a faint energon signal far away somewhere. Then, Shockwave discovers that the Allspark is not in Hawkins, but another city, Detroit, Michigan. While the Scoops are hiding from the Russians, a car flew in and the Russians dodged it. The one who flung the car was actually Alice of the Midnight Sun, along with others. The group shares a reunion when Alice falls and senses her leg hurting her. Luckily, Jean tries his hand at makeshift surgery, prompting Alice to take what's left of the Episode 25. Salvation and Sacrifice in Starcourt. The entire group splits into 3 groups: the Scoops Troop, the Griswold family, and the Eagle's Nest. The Scoops lure the Mind Flayer out of the mountain where the Decepticons prepare to leave Hawkins. The Eagle's Nest try to break into the Russians' base, with the help of Zero. Then, the Griswold team try to evade the Mind Flayer's clutches. All that's left is to close the gate, and Brody appears too. Then the gate was closed for good, but Rhodey and Brody sacrificed their lives to stop the Mind Flayer for good. Episode 26. My Beginning. In the aftermath, all of the events leading up to the Starcourt incident went public. Months later, it's moving day for the Diopulus family, including Alice of the Midnight Sun, who shared one last moment with Finn. Meanwhile, the Autobots sense an energy reading somewhere in Detroit, Michigan, and prepare to leave to find the Allspark. The Decepticons leave too, to find the Allspark. In Russia, while checking on the prisoners, one seems to be holding an egg-shaped item when, suddenly, a Demogorgon attacks him.